It was pouring rain that night, the kind of storm that shakes windows and rattles the heart. Daniel, a 42-year-old mechanic, was locking up his small auto shop when he noticed something unusual near the dumpster at the corner of the street. A woman crouched there, her arms wrapped tightly around a boy who couldn't have been more than 8. Her face was bruised, her clothes soaked, and the child shivered in silence. Most people would have walked past, convincing themselves it wasn't their business, but Daniel couldn't. Something in that scene struck him deep, reminding him of the loneliness he had lived with ever since his wife passed away years earlier. "Hey," he called gently, keeping his distance so he wouldn't frighten them. "Are you all right? Do you need help?" The woman lifted her head slowly. Her swollen lip and frightened eyes told him everything before she even spoke. "Please, we have nowhere to go," she whispered. The boy just clung tighter to her side. Daniel didn't think twice. "Come with me," he said. "We'll catch your death out here." He opened the door to his shop's small office and ushered them inside. He gave them towels, hot tea, and a blanket. The boy's eyes followed Daniel's every move, guarded but curious. That night, Daniel set up a small bed for them in the back room. It wasn't much, but it was warm and safe. Over the next few days, Daniel learned that the woman's name was Claire. She had been trapped in an abusive marriage for years, and that night she had finally found the courage to run away with her son, Ethan. They had no family willing to take them in, no money, and nowhere to turn. Daniel, without hesitation, offered them shelter in his modest 2-bedroom house. He told himself it would only be temporary, just until they found their footing. But days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Before long, Ethan and Claire became part of Daniel's daily life. Ethan, despite the pain he had endured, carried a light in him. He was quiet at first, traumatized by the violence he had seen, but little by little, Daniel earned his trust. Daniel taught Ethan how to ride a bike, helped him with homework, and even brought him to the auto shop on weekends. "Every engine has its own rhythm," Daniel would say, guiding Ethan's small hands. Ethan listened with wide eyes, soaking in every word. Claire too began to heal. She found part-time work, and her smile, once timid and rare, grew stronger each day. Often, she would look at Daniel with gratitude she couldn't put into words. He had saved her and her son from the edge of despair, and she knew it. Years passed. Ethan grew taller, stronger, and braver. Where he once carried fear in his eyes, now there was determination. He worked hard in school, fueled by the stability and kindness Daniel had given him. He often said, "Uncle Dan, one day I'll make you proud." Daniel would just chuckle, ruffling his hair, never realizing how serious Ethan was. One day, Ethan brought home a drawing for Daniel, a picture of a heart with the words beating strong and true. Daniel, moved by the child's innocence and creativity, hung it up in his workshop. Little did he know it was a prophecy of what was to come. Years later, when Daniel was 68 and Ethan 31, fate dealt them a harsh hand. Daniel collapsed at the shop. The long hours, years of hard work, and neglect of his own health had finally caught up to him. Claire rushed him to the hospital, where doctors revealed that his heart condition was severe. He needed surgery, expensive surgery that Daniel could never afford. The news crushed him. Daniel, who had given so much, now found himself helpless. "Don't you worry about me," he told Ethan and Claire with a weak smile. "I've lived my life. Focus on yours." But Ethan refused to accept that. He worked part-time jobs, applied for scholarships, and studied harder than ever. His dream became clear. He wanted to become a doctor, a heart surgeon. He wanted to save people like Daniel, the man who had saved him. It took years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and relentless determination, but Ethan never gave up. Claire supported him every step of the way, and Daniel, though skeptical at first, watched with pride as the boy he once sheltered grew into a remarkable young man. By the time Ethan graduated medical school, Daniel's condition had worsened. His body was frail, his energy fading, but his spirit remained unbroken. And the day finally came for Daniel's surgery. The man who walked into the operating room to perform it was none other than Ethan. Standing there in his white coat, Ethan looked down at Daniel, who smiled faintly through his oxygen mask. "You kept your promise, kid," Daniel whispered. "You made me proud." Tears blurred Ethan's vision, but his hands were steady. "I'm only here because of you," he replied. The surgery was long and complicated, but it was successful. Daniel survived because of the boy he once found shivering in the rain. From that day forward, Daniel never doubted the meaning of kindness. His one act of compassion had not only saved Claire and Ethan's lives, but had, in time, saved his own. Years later, as Ethan built his career helping others, he often told the story of the mechanic who opened his door on a stormy night. Without him, Ethan would say, I wouldn't be here. He taught me what it means to give, even when you have little, and that's the reason I became who I am. So if you find yourself in a world that often feels cold and uncaring, remember the story of Daniel and Ethan. For in the darkest of nights, a single act of kindness can light up a life and change the course of destiny.